away from me, you filthy blackie beggar!
She splashed red wine at him and stood there in her white Chanel suit. The black man remained kneeling in prayer, clutching a commemorative photograph in his hand.
Madam, I'm just praying.
5 minutes? Get back to the slums. Out of my sight now.
She spat. The saliva landed beside his lilies. He didn't move. He didn't wipe his face when she spat or threw wine at him again. He stood there, battered and distressed. The photograph of his mother still pressed against his chest. She snapped her fingers at her bodyguard.
Get him out!
What she didn't know, every pew, every stained glass window, every inch of marble she had just spat on was paid for by him. 6 in the morning. Atlanta is still asleep. In a modest condo in Midtown, a man stands in front of a small bathroom mirror. He's 62 years old. His hair is silver at the temples. His hands are steady as he buttons a plain gray shirt, the kind you can buy at any department store for $40. His name is Malcolm Anderson, and today is the anniversary of his mother's death. He pours his own coffee from a percolator that's older than his marriage. The smell fills the small kitchen, bitter, familiar, the way his mother used to make it. He sits at the table, alone. A worn leather Bible rests beside his mug, its spine cracked from decades of use. On the inside cover, in fading blue ink, 4 words written in a woman's careful hand. Knees down, back straight. His mother wrote that the year before she died. He still reads it every morning. Sometimes he runs his thumb across the letters just to feel her handwriting one more time. There's a framed photograph on the kitchen wall. A black woman in a janitor smock standing outside a small church in Birmingham, Alabama. The year 1968 is scratched into the corner. She isn't smiling, but there's something in her eyes, a quiet strength that the camera barely caught. Malcolm looks at her, lifts his coffee in a small, private toast. Happy anniversary, Mama. I'm coming to see you today. He rinses the mug, dries it with a towel that has seen better days, hangs it back on the hook beside the sink. Every motion is slow, deliberate. The morning of a son visiting his mother. He doesn't have a driver, doesn't have an assistant, doesn't have a security detail trailing behind him. He grabs his old wool coat from the hook by the door and walks down to the parking garage himself. His car is a black Lincoln, 6 years old, dust on the rims. He could afford any car in the world. He chooses this one because his mother taught him that humility is a choice you make every morning, not an accident of circumstance. The streets of Atlanta are nearly empty. He drives slowly, the radio off, the silence pressing gently against the windshield like an old friend. He stops at a small florist on Peachtree. The bell above the door jingles. An elderly black woman behind the counter looks up and smiles. The kind of smile that doesn't recognize him, doesn't know who he is, doesn't owe him anything. He likes it that way. "White lilies, baby?" she asks, already reaching for the cooler. "Yes, ma'am, the freshest ones you've got." She hands him a bouquet wrapped in plain brown paper. He pays in cash, leaves a tip that makes her eyes widen, but he's already out the door before she can say anything. The lilies were his mother's favorite flower. She used to say they reminded her that beauty can grow in places no one bothers to look. Now, what Malcolm doesn't tell anyone, what almost no one in Atlanta knows, is this. 22 years ago, he founded a private trust called the Sparrow Foundation. He named it after his mother's favorite hymn, "His eye is on the sparrow." Every charitable dollar he has ever given has gone through that trust, anonymously, quietly, without his name on a single brick or plaque or building. He believes, the way his mother believed, that goodness loses its name the moment you carve it into a wall. Only 3 people in Atlanta know the truth behind the Sparrow Foundation. The Bishop of Grace Memorial Cathedral, the choir director, and the trust attorney who has kept the secret for 2 decades. All three of them swore on a Bible they would never speak his name in connection with the money. He pulls up to Grace Memorial just after 7 in the morning. The cathedral rises in front of him. Limestone walls, stained glass windows catching the first light of dawn. There is no plaque with his name on it. There is no statue. There is only a small stone tucked beside the garden reading, "In honor of the unnamed laborers who built this house." Malcolm steps out of the car with his lilies and his Bible. He walks toward the side door, the one the choir uses for rehearsal. He doesn't want to disturb anyone. He doesn't know yet that in less than 30 minutes, a woman in a white Chanel suit will walk through the main doors, and she will not stay silent. 7:30 in the morning. The cathedral has been quiet for almost half an hour. Malcolm is kneeling at the altar. The white lilies are laid down at his knees. The leather Bible is open in his hands. His eyes are closed. He's whispering the same prayer he says every year on this morning. The words his mother taught him when he was 6 years old, kneeling beside her on the cold tile floor of a cheap rental apartment in Birmingham. He doesn't hear the side doors of the cathedral open. He doesn't hear the heels clicking against the marble. Slow at first, then faster, then sharp and angry. But the woman who just walked in, she heard everything she needed to hear the moment she saw him. Vivian Caldwell stops in the center aisle. She's holding the clipboard in one hand and a half-full glass of red wine in the other. Yes, wine, at 7:30 in the morning. Her hand is shaking, not from cold, from nerves. Tonight is her gala. 200 guests, the mayor, 3 CEOs, the president of the Piedmont Driving Club, the wives of every old money family in Buckhead. She has been planning this for 8 months. She moved to Atlanta with her husband Harrison 8 months ago. He's the new CEO of Caldwell Industries. She's the new wife trying to break into the oldest social circle in the South. And so far, every single one of those women has ignored her phone calls. This gala is her last chance, her one shot. And there, at her altar, in her cathedral, in her moment, is a black man in a cheap gray shirt, kneeling alone, holding flowers. She doesn't see a man praying. She sees a problem. She turns to the bodyguard trailing 2 steps behind her, Brennan Hayes, ex-military paid by the hour, and her voice cuts through the silence like a blade. "Brennan, there's a vagrant in my sanctuary. Get him out before someone important sees this." Brennan hesitates, just for a second. He's seen Malcolm before, somewhere. The charity dinner photo, maybe a board meeting, but he can't place the face. He shakes the thought away and steps forward. "Sir," he says, his voice flat, "you're going to need to leave the building." Malcolm opens his eyes slowly. He doesn't stand, doesn't turn, just lifts his head a little. "Good morning. I'll be done in 5 minutes. I'm just praying for my mother." Brennan glances back at Vivian. Vivian's face hardens. She steps forward herself, heels striking marble, each click louder than the last. She stops 3 feet from Malcolm and looks down at him like she's looking at something stuck to her shoe. "Did you hear what he said? 5 minutes. In my sanctuary." Malcolm finally turns his head. His voice stays soft. "Ma'am, it isn't your sanctuary. It's God's house. And he's been letting me in for a long time." That was the wrong thing to say to Vivian Caldwell. Her jaw tightens. Her grip on the wine glass tightens. The clipboard trembles in her other hand. "Don't you dare lecture me about whose house this is. Do you have a pew assignment? A pledge card? Are you even a member here?" "I don't need a membership card, ma'am. I'm here every year on this day." "Every year?" She lets out a sharp, ugly laugh. "Brennan, did you hear that? Every year. The man thinks he has a standing appointment at a cathedral he can't even afford to walk past." By now, a few early arrivals have drifted into the sanctuary. A young black couple in their Sunday clothes, the wife clutching a hymnal, the husband already frowning at what he's hearing. Loretta Brooks, the parish treasurer, a 60-year-old black woman who has worked at Grace Memorial for 12 years, pauses at the back of the nave, an armful of bulletins held against her chest. And Walter Hollister, 70 years old, white, a retired deacon who has been part of this church longer than Vivian has been married. He's the first one to move toward the front. "Vivian," he says, his voice slow and careful. "Stop. Whatever you think is happening here, stop. This man is not bothering anyone." She doesn't even look at him. "Walter, stay out of this. You don't understand what I'm trying to protect here." "I understand exactly what's happening here," Walter says, taking another step closer. "I see a man praying. That's all I need to see. I don't know who he is. I don't care who he is. He is praying, and you are interrupting him." Vivian's eyes flick to him for half a second, then back to Malcolm. "You see a man praying. I see a man who shouldn't be here. There's a difference." She turns to Brennan, snaps her fingers. Actually, snaps them like she's calling a dog. "Search his bag. There's something in that pouch beside the flowers. I want to know what he stole." Malcolm's voice rises for the first time. Not much, just enough. "That bag is mine, man. It's personal. Please don't touch it." "Personal?" Vivian smirks. "Honey, in my cathedral, on my morning, on the day of my gala, nothing about you is personal." "Brennan, the bag." Brennan reaches for it. The young husband in the pew behind them speaks up. "Ma'am, that ain't right. You can't search a man's belongings without—" "Sir, please, sit down. This doesn't concern you." "It concerns me when I see a black man being treated like—" "I said, sit down." Loretta Brooks, still standing at the back, slowly sets the bulletins down on a pew. She moves quietly toward the parish office, toward the phone on the wall. Walter Hollister catches her eye and gives her a small nod. She nods back. She knows what to do. Meanwhile, Brennan has opened the velvet pouch. He turns it upside down. Out spills a folded letter, sealed, never opened, the paper yellowed with age, a small envelope of pressed white lily petals, and a single black and white photograph. A black woman in a janitor's smock, standing outside a small church. The year 1968 scratched into the corner. Brennan pauses. Something about the photo unsettles him. He doesn't know why. Vivian leans down, plucks the photograph up between two manicured fingers like she's lifting something diseased. She studies it for a moment. Then she laughs. "Oh my God. He brought props. Brennan, look at this. He brought a sad little picture of a maid to make us feel sorry for him. This is what they do, you know. They bring photos, they cry, they beg. It's a whole performance." Malcolm's hands are trembling now, not with fear, with something deeper. "Ma'am, please give that back to me." She holds it up higher, out of his reach, like a child holding a toy. "Who is she then? Some auntie of yours? Some grandmother who scrubbed floors in a back alley church?" Malcolm's voice cracks for the first time in 20 years. "That's my mother." The cathedral goes very still. The young black wife covers her mouth. The husband stands up. Walter Hollister's face goes pale with anger. But Vivian Caldwell, Vivian doesn't notice any of it. She's looking at the photograph and laughing again, softer this time, almost to herself. "Of course it is. Of course it's your mother. Look at her, a maid, a nobody. Did she scrub floors for white families, sweetheart? Is that how you grew up, watching Mama bow her head to better people?" Then she does something that makes the whole cathedral inhale. She drops the photograph. It flutters down, lands face up on the marble, right in the dust. Malcolm watches it fall. His shoulders go very still. His jaw locks. He rises from his knees. Slowly, like a man who has spent his whole life keeping his temper folded neatly inside his chest and is now, very carefully, taking it out for the first time. He doesn't yell. He doesn't lunge. He doesn't even raise his voice. He just stands at his full height, looks Vivian Caldwell in the eye and says, "You can say anything you want about me, ma'am. You can call me a beggar, a vagrant, a thief. I'll take it. I've heard worse. But you do not speak about my mother." Vivian's smirk falters, just for a second. She wasn't expecting him to stand. She wasn't expecting him to look her in the eye. She wasn't expecting him to have a voice that didn't shake. And in that 1 second of silence, that tiny, fragile second when the power between them shifted, every person in the cathedral felt it. Walter Hollister stepped closer. Loretta Brooks paused with her hand on the parish phone. Brennan Hayes took half a step back. The young couple stood frozen in their pew. And outside, far down the street, a black SUV with a small choir embroidered on the door was already turning onto the cathedral road. But Vivian didn't see any of that. She only saw a black man standing up to her in her cathedral on the morning of her gala. And she was about to make the worst decision of her life. For a moment, no one moved. Malcolm stood there, hands at his sides, breathing slow. The photograph of his mother lay face up on the marble between them, smudged with dust from the cathedral floor. Vivian's smirk had faltered, but only for a second. Now it was coming back, slower, meaner. Because if there was one thing Vivian Caldwell could not tolerate, it was being made to feel small, especially by someone she had already decided was beneath her. She tilted her head, looked Malcolm up and down like she was inspecting cheap furniture at a thrift store. Oh, so the beggar has a speech. Brennan, did you hear that? The beggar has a speech. Brennan didn't answer. His hand had drifted away from his sidearm. He was looking at the photograph on the floor. Something about it was tugging at the back of his mind. Vivian took another step forward. Her wine glass was still half full. Her free hand was clenched into a tight little fist. "Let me explain something to you, sweetheart. You think because you stood up to your full height, you suddenly matter? You think because you said the word mother with a little catch in your voice that I'm going to feel something? Sweetheart, I have been to charity galas where people cry on cue better than you." "I don't need you to feel anything, ma'am," Malcolm said quietly. "I just need you to give me back my photograph and let me finish my prayer." "You don't need anything from me. You don't get to need anything from me. You don't even get to stand in this building unless I say so." She bent down, slowly, theatrically, and picked up the photograph again, this time with her thumb and one finger like she was lifting a dead insect. She held it up, looked at it, smiled. "You know what I think? I think she probably stole food from the families she worked for. I think she probably told you bedtime stories about how the white folks were keeping her down. I think she..." That was when Malcolm's voice changed. It didn't get louder. It got lower. The kind of low that makes the room hold its breath. "Man, I'm asking you. One time. Stop talking about my mother." Walter Hollister, standing 6 feet away, took another step forward. His old hands were shaking now. "Vivian, so help me. Put the photograph down." She didn't. She turned to Walter with that bright, brittle smile of hers, the one she'd practiced for 8 months in front of the mirror. "Walter, you sweet old man. Do you understand what's happening here? This creature walked into a sanctuary that families like mine built. He's kneeling at an altar that families like mine paid for. And you're defending him? Walter's voice was very quiet. Families like yours didn't pay for this altar, Vivian. You've been a member here for 6 months. You don't know what families paid for this place. You don't know the half of it. She laughed. And you do? I know it wasn't you, Walter said. Vivian's eyes flashed. She turned back to Malcolm, and without warning, without thought, without the slightest hesitation, she splashed the wine. The red wine arced through the air, a long, ugly streak of crimson. It hit Malcolm full in the face, drenched his shirt, soaked into his collar. Some of it splattered onto the lilies. Some of it landed on the open Bible at his knees, staining the thin pages dark red. Malcolm flinched. His eyes snapped shut. The wine stung, sharp and acid in his eyes, on his lips, in his nose. He turned his face away and wiped at his eyes with the back of his wrist. Wine dripped from his chin, from his earlobe, from the cuff of his shirt. He bent down, picked up the photograph she had let fall again, wiped it carefully with his sleeve, gently, the way you'd wipe dirt off a child's cheek, pressed it against his chest. He didn't say a word. The young husband in the pew had jumped to his feet. Are you out of your mind? The young wife had her phone out, not recording but dialing. I'm calling the police. Loretta Brooks was already on the parish phone in the back hallway. Her voice was low and urgent. Yes, Grace Memorial Cathedral. Yes, now, right now. A woman just assaulted a man at the altar. The main one. Yes, I'll stay on the line. Brennan Hayes had stepped back 2 full feet. His face had gone gray. He was a private bodyguard hired by the hour, and he had just watched his employer commit battery in a church. He knew what that meant. He knew his career was about to end before lunch. Walter Hollister moved forward. He took off his suit jacket, held it out to Malcolm. Son, let me help you, please. Malcolm shook his head gently. I'm all right, Walter. Thank you. But he wasn't all right. Wine was still dripping from his hair. His eyes were red, half from the alcohol, half from something else. His hands were shaking now, not with fear, with grief. He straightened his back. He looked at Vivian, and he spoke. Mrs. Caldwell, I need you to listen to me, not because of who I am, not because of anything I have, just because I am a human being. Vivian's chest was rising and falling fast. She was breathing through her nose like a horse. The wine glass, now empty, was still clenched in her hand. You think you have the right to throw wine in my face because you think I'm nobody. But if I really was a homeless man who walked in here to pray, you still wouldn't have that right. Dignity isn't a membership card. It isn't a bank account. It isn't something you earn by being important enough. He took a breath. The wine on his lips made him wince. My mother scrubbed floors in a church for 30 years, $2 an hour. But she was loved. She was loved by everyone who knew her, because she treated every single person with her whole heart. She didn't look down on anyone, not the homeless men who slept by the church doors, not the choir members who couldn't afford their own robes, not the young mothers who came crying to her at 2 a.m. Not one single soul. He paused, looked Vivian dead in the eye. That is what my mother taught me, and that is something you will never understand. Vivian Caldwell stood there. The cathedral was silent. The young couple was frozen in the pew. Loretta was off the phone now, standing very still at the back of the nave. Walter was 3 feet away, his suit jacket still extended toward Malcolm. And something inside Vivian Caldwell, something fragile and brittle and never tested, finally broke. She had been called many things in her life: beautiful, charming, ambitious. But she had never, not once, been lectured. Not by a man like this. Not in front of witnesses. Not in her cathedral on the morning of her gala. The shame she should have felt didn't come. What came instead was rage. Pure, ugly, unfiltered rage. Her face contorted, her lips peeled back. Every careful piece of buckhead grooming she had spent 8 months building, the soft voice, the country club laugh, the practiced charity board smile, fell away. And what was left was something raw, something hateful, something she had been hiding her whole life behind designer suits and diamond bracelets. She didn't say anything. She just leaned forward and spat. A full, deliberate, ugly glob of saliva. It landed on the marble floor, right beside Malcolm's knee, right next to the white lilies, right where his mother's photograph had just been picked up. The sound of it hitting the stone was wet and small, but every single person in that cathedral heard it. She straightened up, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, and said, in a voice that didn't even sound like her own anymore, "That is what your mother is worth in my church. You and that whole heart she taught you, not even worth the spit on the floor. Now crawl out of here before I have you arrested for trespassing." Walter Hollister staggered backward. His hand went to his chest. Vivian, in the house of God. In the house of God! Loretta dropped the phone receiver. It dangled by its cord, swinging slowly. She was shaking. The young couple's faces were wet. The wife was openly crying now. The husband had his hand over his mouth. Brennan Hayes had turned away. He couldn't watch anymore. And Malcolm didn't look down at the saliva. He didn't pick up the lilies. He didn't speak. He just closed his eyes. And for the first time since the wine had hit his face, a single tear slipped out from beneath his lashes and slid down his cheek. It mixed with the wine, ran down his jaw, fell onto the marble. He whispered something. Not to Vivian, not to anyone in the cathedral. To his mother. "I'm sorry, Mom. I couldn't protect you. Not even here. Not even today." And right on cue, at the far end of the cathedral, the heavy main doors creaked open. The heavy oak doors groaned open. Morning light flooded the nave in a long golden rectangle. Bishop Lawrence Hollis stepped inside first, white-haired, tall, his vestments folded neatly over one arm. Behind him, 120 choir members in deep burgundy robes filed in 2 by 2, carrying their hymnals and a small portable organ. At the front of the choir walked Sister Eleanor Whitfield, 60 years old, black, sharp-eyed. She had been the choir director at Grace Memorial for 22 years. They froze in the doorway. What they saw was this. A man at the altar with red wine dripping down his face, a bouquet of white lilies on the marble, a wet glob of saliva beside his knee, a woman in a white Chanel suit, Lee Rieuserong in her hand, breathing hard, and Walter Hollister with his suit jacket extended in a trembling hand. Bishop Hollis felt the vestments slide off his arm. They fell silently to the cold stone floor. Then he saw the face of the man at the altar. His knees almost buckled. "Oh, dear God in heaven." His voice carried across the nave like a struck bell. He started walking, then walking faster. By the time he reached the center aisle, he was almost running, an old man in a black cassock hurrying down the marble like his heart was trying to leap out ahead of him. Vivian saw him coming. Her face broke into a relieved, practiced smile. The smile she had been saving for the gala tonight. "Bishop, oh, thank God you're here. There's been a homeless man. He wouldn't leave. Brennan had to—" The bishop didn't even slow down. He walked right past her as if she wasn't standing there. He stopped in front of Malcolm, and then in front of the young couple, in front of Brennan, in front of Loretta, in front of every soul in that cathedral. Bishop Lawrence Hollis bowed his head. Not a polite nod, a full bow from the waist.
Mr. Anderson, forgive us. Forgive us, son. We were not here in time.
Up in the choir loft, 120 robes stopped moving. Every face turned toward the altar. Sister Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Lord have mercy. Malcolm Anderson, is that you? Vivian's smile froze on her face. I'm sorry, Bishop. Who? The bishop didn't answer her. He was still bowed. He reached out, slowly, gently, and took Malcolm's hand.
It's the morning of her anniversary, isn't it? Today, of all days.
Malcolm couldn't speak. He nodded once, wine still drying on his cheek. The bishop turned, and for the first time, he looked at Vivian Caldwell. His face was white, then it was red, then it was something even older. The face of a man who has spent 50 years in ministry and has, finally, run out of patience. What happened in here? Tell me. Now! Vivian opened her mouth. Bishop,
Not from you, Walter. What did you see?
Walter stepped forward. His voice shook. I saw her mock his mother. I saw her throw a glass of wine in his face. And then, God help her, I saw her spit on the floor at his feet in this cathedral on this morning. The bishop turned to Loretta. Loretta, is this true? Every word, Father. I called the police. They're coming. He turned to Brennan. Mr. Hayes, you work for her. Is what they're saying true? Brennan looked down at his shoes for a long moment. Then he looked up. His voice was hoarse. Yes, sir. It's true. I'll testify. I'll testify in any court you want. Vivian's head snapped toward him. Brennan, you shut your mouth! No, ma'am. I'm done. The bishop closed his eyes. He breathed in. He breathed out. When he opened them, he was very, very still. He bent down, picked up the white lilies from the marble, brushed the dust off them with the side of his hand, held them out to Malcolm like he was handing him something sacred. Malcolm took them. His eyes were full. The bishop straightened his back, turned to Vivian. Mrs. Caldwell, do you know what day this is? It's Sunday. It's the day of the gala. Today, the bishop said, is the anniversary of the death of Ruth Anderson, a woman who scrubbed floors at Mount Zion Church in 1968 for $2 an hour. A woman who fed homeless men out of her own lunch pail. A woman who taught a child named Malcolm to keep his knees down and his back straight. The choir loft was silent. Every face was wet now. For 22 years, this choir and I have come to this cathedral on this morning to sing for her. Not because anyone paid us, because she was kind to us when no one else was. He paused. And this man you just threw wine on, is her son. Vivian's lips parted. No sound came out. He is Malcolm Anderson, founder of the Sparrow Foundation, the trust that has anonymously funded every brick of this cathedral for the past 22 years. The trust that paid for the stained glass window above your head. Vivian's eyes turned, slowly, up toward the stained glass. A black woman in a janitor's smock, holding a child, the morning light streaming through her face. Vivian Caldwell felt her knees go soft. And then, without warning, without a single instruction from Sister Eleanor, 120 voices in the choir loft began quietly to sing. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. The choir's first verse rose into the rafters, soft, trembling, then steadier, then full. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. Vivian Caldwell stood very still in the center aisle. The wine glass was still in her hand. Her face had gone the color of paper. She tried to speak. Her voice cracked. Mr. Anderson, I had no idea. I had no idea. This was a misunderstanding. Brennan, tell him. Tell him! Brennan didn't even look at her. He was standing 5 feet away, arms folded across his chest, eyes fixed on the floor. It wasn't a misunderstanding, ma'am. You knew exactly what you were doing. Vivian's head turned in tiny, panicked jerks. The choir was still singing. The bishop was still standing in front of Malcolm. The young couple, Walter, Loretta, they were all watching her now. She forced a smile onto her face, the country club smile, the one that had gotten her out of trouble her whole life. Mr. Anderson, Malcolm, let's sit down. Let me make this right. Lunch at the driving club, my treat. I'll write a check to the foundation, a big one. She stepped forward, laid her hand on his arm. Malcolm looked down at her hand, then back at her face. Mrs. Caldwell, please don't touch me. You've done enough of that for one morning. He stepped back. Her hand fell into empty air. Behind her, the heavy oak doors creaked open again. 2 Atlanta police officers walked in. They didn't run. They didn't draw their weapons. They just walked. Slow. Professional. The lead officer was a tall black man in his 40s, Officer Daniels, 18 years on the force. He looked at the wine on the marble, the saliva beside the lilies, the Bible stained dark red on the altar. He didn't need anyone to tell him what had happened. Ma'am, I'm Officer Daniels. Are you Mrs. Vivian Caldwell? She tried the smile again. Officer, this is all a misunderstanding. Ma'am, we've got 2 911 calls. They both say the same thing, so I'm going to ask you to come with us, please. Come with you? Do you know who I am? My husband is Harrison Caldwell. He runs Caldwell Industries. He's having dinner with the mayor tonight. Ma'am, I know who your husband is. That's not why we're here. Witnesses saw you assault this gentleman at the altar. Spitting on someone is battery in Georgia. Throwing a drink is also battery. We have to take you in. Vivian's eyes flicked to Malcolm, desperate now. Mr. Anderson, tell them you don't want to press charges, please. Malcolm looked at her for a long moment. The wine had dried into a dark stain across his collar. His voice was quiet. Officers, I would ask only one thing. Please treat her with dignity. With respect, sir, Officer Daniels said gently. This isn't only your call anymore. There are witnesses. There's a 911 recording. The DA will decide. The second officer stepped behind Vivian, took her wrists, clicked the handcuffs into place. Plick, plick. The sound bounced off the marble walls. Vivian let out a small sound, half gasp, half whimper. Her diamond bracelet jangled against the metal cuff. Her clipboard slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the floor. My gala, she whispered. My gala is in 12 hours. Ma'am, let's go. They led her down the center aisle she had walked up so confidently 20 minutes earlier. Her heels clicked slower now. She did not look at the choir. She did not look at the bishop. She did not look at Malcolm. The heavy oak doors closed behind her. The choir kept singing. They had never stopped. The bishop turned to face the rest of the cathedral. His voice was hoarse but steady. Brothers and sisters, this morning's service will begin with a moment of silence for Ruth Anderson and for the dignity her son just showed in this house of God. Malcolm knelt back down at the altar. He picked up the blood-stained Bible. He picked up the white lilies the bishop had brushed clean. And, for the first time in 6 years, He opened the letter his mother had written him the week before she died. He didn't read it aloud, but the audience could see from the way his shoulders relaxed that his mother had answered him. By that evening, every household that mattered in Atlanta knew. The news did not travel through a viral video. There was no phone recording. There was no live stream. The news traveled the old way, the way news has always traveled in Southern society. Through dinner tables, through landline phone calls, through whispered conversations at the Capital City Club and the Junior League and the Piedmont Driving Club. By 6 o'clock Sunday evening, the wives of every old money family in Buckhead had heard. By 8 o'clock, 3 CEOs had canceled their attendance at the Caldwell Gala. By 9, the mayor's office had issued a one-line statement. The mayor will not be in attendance this evening. By 10 o'clock that night, the grand ballroom of the St. Regis Atlanta sat completely empty. 200 place settings, 20 round tables draped in white linen, a string quartet packing up their instruments, and not one guest. Harrison Caldwell had spent the day at the police station trying to bail his wife out. He returned to the empty ballroom at 10:30, loosened his tie, and sat down at the head table alone. Monday morning, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran the story on the front page. The reporter was a woman named Margaret Ainsley. She had spent the night calling every witness. Walter Hollister, Loretta Brooks, the young couple from the pew, Brennan Hayes, Bishop Hollis himself, who broke a 22-year oath to speak on the record. The headline read, "In cathedral he quietly built, a black billionaire is spat on during prayer for his mother." It was the most read article in the paper's history. By Monday afternoon, WSB-TV's senior investigative reporter, Vance Holloway, had aired a 6-minute segment featuring on-camera interviews with 8 of the 15 witnesses. The bishop sat in his vestments and spoke quietly into the lens. "For 22 years I gave my word that this man's name would never be spoken in connection with what he has given this city. Today I broke that word, because he could not be allowed to suffer in silence for the sake of his own modesty. I am sorry, Malcolm, but the world had to know." The clip aired on every local broadcast that night. It aired on CNN the morning after. Caldwell Industries opened Monday morning at $58 a share. By the closing bell, it was trading at $39. Investors fled. The board called an emergency meeting. At 9 a.m. Tuesday morning, the General Counsel of Caldwell Industries called the Anderson Global Holdings legal office. He requested, formally and on the record, to terminate the $1.5 billion supply contract under the morality clause. Anderson Global Holdings accepted the termination within the hour and offered a generous transition package for affected Caldwell workers. Harrison Caldwell tried to call Malcolm personally. Malcolm did not take the call. His assistant relayed a single message. "Mr. Anderson wishes Mr. Caldwell well. Business has been concluded." By Wednesday, Harrison had filed for divorce. The papers cited irreconcilable differences and irreparable damage to the family's reputation. He moved out of their Buckhead estate by Friday. The Piedmont Driving Club's membership committee held an emergency vote. Vivian was expelled permanently by unanimous decision. The Capital City Club followed the next day. The Junior League removed her name from every committee roster. 3 corporate boards on which she had served voted her out within 72 hours. She had spent 8 months trying to claw her way into Atlanta high society. It took less than 72 hours for that society to spit her back out. The trial began 6 weeks later. The district attorney's office assigned the case to a senior prosecutor named Camille Dawson, a black woman in her early 50s, sharp, methodical, undefeated in cases of public assault. She did not need a viral video. She had 15 witnesses. She had a 911 recording. She had a wine-stained Bible entered into evidence in a clear plastic sleeve. She called Walter Hollister to the stand on the second day. He was 70 years old. He wore his old wool suit. He gripped the edge of the witness box with both hands. "Mr. Hollister," Dawson said, What did you see in the cathedral that morning? I saw a woman who had been given everything, Walter said quietly, throw a glass of wine at a man who was praying for his mother. And then I saw her spit on the floor of God's house in front of him. How did you feel, sir? The old man was quiet for a long moment. I felt ashamed, ma'am, for my whole life, for every time I'd ever stayed silent when something like this was happening in front of me. I'm 70 years old. I had never seen anything like it. I hope I never do again. The jury was openly weeping by the end of his testimony. Bishop Hollis took the stand on the 5th day. He spoke for 40 minutes. When he was finished, Camille Dawson rested her case. The jury was out for 3 hours. They returned with a verdict on every count. Guilty of simple battery, guilty of public indecency, guilty of disorderly conduct in a place of worship. The judge handed down the sentence the following Friday. 12 months in the Fulton County Detention Center, 3 years of probation, $650,000 in civil damages. At Malcolm's quiet request, every dollar of those damages was paid, by court order, directly to the Ruth M. Anderson Memorial Scholarship Fund. Vivian Caldwell did not cry when the sentence was read. She did not speak. She simply stared down at her hands in her lap. Her diamond bracelet was gone. She had sold it to pay her attorney. Her wedding ring was gone. Harrison had taken it. She was wearing a county-issued cotton smock. She had become, in the eyes of Atlanta, the very thing she had spent her entire life avoiding. Outside the courthouse, Camille Dawson gave a brief statement to the press. This case wasn't about money. It wasn't about power. It was about the smallest, simplest principle a society can hold. That you do not look at a human being who is praying for his mother and decide he is beneath you. Today, the state of Georgia made that principle the law. 2 weeks later, Caldwell Industries' new CEO stood at a podium and publicly apologized to Malcolm Anderson on behalf of his company. The company donated $5 million to the Ruth Anderson Scholarship Fund as a gesture of goodwill. Malcolm accepted the donation with 3 words. Thank you. Continue. 1 year later. It is the morning of the anniversary again. The same Atlanta dawn, the same gray light through the stained glass, the same black Lincoln pulling up to the side of Grace Memorial Cathedral. Malcolm Anderson steps out, white lilies in one hand, the same leather Bible in the other, the same plain gray shirt, the same silver at his temples. But the cathedral is different now. The wine-stained Bible from that morning sits in a small glass case in the parish hallway. Beside it, a brass plaque reads, "A reminder that holiness is not in the building. It is in the one who kneels." In the spot on the marble floor where Vivian Caldwell spat, Bishop Hollis ordered a small block of black granite to be set into the stone. The inscription is carved in gold. Here, the love of a mother defeated the contempt of the world. Ruth Anderson. She is remembered. Malcolm walks past it slowly. He does not look down. He never does. He kneels at the altar. He places the lilies. He opens his Bible. The doors open behind him. The bishop walks in. The choir files in. 120 robes, 2 by 2, the way they always do. Sister Eleanor raises her hand. They begin to sing. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. The cathedral is full this morning. Word has spread. Strangers come now, every year on this day, just to sit and hear them sing. They don't know Malcolm. He doesn't know them. He prefers it that way. Across town, in a 1-bedroom apartment in a part of Atlanta she once wouldn't have driven through, Vivian Caldwell sits at a small kitchen table with a stack of job applications. She was released 2 months ago. She has been turned down by every employer she has applied to. Today's application is for a part-time cashier position at a discount retailer in Marietta. She is 48 years old. She has never worked a job in her life. She fills out the form carefully. Her hand shakes a little. The application will be denied by Friday. She will not appeal. She will fill out another one, and another, and another, because Atlanta has a long memory, and her name, for the rest of her life, will be the name of the woman who spat in the cathedral. The Ruth M. Anderson Memorial Scholarship Fund, in its first full year of expanded operations, sent 2,400 first-generation students to historically black colleges and universities. Among them, 18 future doctors, 31 future attorneys, 6 future judges, and one young woman named Imani Brooks, the daughter of Loretta Brooks, the parish treasurer, who is studying journalism at Spelman College on the very first scholarship issued in Ruth Anderson's name. Imani did not know about the cathedral that morning. She did not know about her mother's phone call to 911. She did not know that Malcolm Anderson had personally requested her file from a stack of applications and approved it without ever meeting her. Some good things travel quietly, the way his mother always wanted them to. In the cathedral, the choir reaches the last verse. The morning light catches the stained glass window. The face of Ruth Anderson glows red and gold above the altar, the face Vivian Caldwell had stood beneath without ever once looking up. Malcolm Anderson closes his eyes. He whispers, to no one but his mother, "You were loved, Mama. You are still loved. And every soul who comes through these doors today knows your name." The choir holds the final note. It rises. It hangs in the air. It will not fall. I want to hear from you. Have you ever watched someone treat a stranger like they were invisible, and then learned later who that stranger really was? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. If this story moved you, hit the like button so the algorithm shares Malcolm's story with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe, because next week's story has a twist I genuinely couldn't believe when I first heard it. And remember, the next person you decide is beneath you might just be the reason you have a roof over your head. If you had been in that pew that morning, would you have stood up like Walter Hollister did? Or would you have stayed silent in your seat? Tell me below. I'm listening.
The story is over, but I want to sit with you for a minute because a few things still haunt me. The first one hurts the most. We judge people by what they wear, not who they are. Vivian saw a $40 gray shirt and decided who Malcolm was in 3 seconds. 3 seconds. That's all she gave another human being. And honestly, we have all done it. Not all of us fit. But that quick glance we throw at the janitor, the lottery seller, the man praying alone in the corner, that glance is all kind of speed, just quieter. The second thing came from Malcolm's mother, Ruth Grufflaw's 30 years, $2 an hour. She didn't leave her son money. She left forwards in his Bible, knees down, back straight, meaning be humble but never bow your head. So, let me ask you, when was the last time you looked down on somebody? Don't answer me, answer yourself, because the person you think is beneath you might be the one quietly keeping the lights on for your whole neighborhood. If you had been in that pew, would you have stood up like water or stayed silent? Tell me below. I read everyone. Hit like, subscribe. Next week's story, I still can't believe it's real. Remember, what somebody wears doesn't tell you who they are. How you treat them tell you who you are.